Right, now we're going to move on really quickly to, as sort of teased earlier, a brand new feature of these Firestarter forums. It's always amazing how many great people we have on, how many great stories we have to hear, and linked to this whole idea of just trying to get everybody thinking together, sharing, encouraging each other. What we thought we would do is once in a while spend 5 minutes with one of our forum regulars. So hopefully we're going to make it a little bit fun. We've got a countdown just to put a bit of pace into it. But rather than me fumble through it in my inimitable way, we thought we would ask a professional to do it. So our good friend, Dave Harries, who many of you will know ran all our podcasts for us recently. We've asked Dave to host our 5 minutes with. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Dave.
Thank you, Chris. It's an absolute honour to be asked to do this. So very much thanks to Firestarter for that. Our first guest on 5 Minutes With is Alan Tattersall. Alan is the owner and director of ATSM Limited, a business advisory service helping a number of companies, particularly startups. He holds many exec and non-exec directorships, and he is also a trustee of World Youth Service and Enterprise, an organisation that seeks to empower emerging leaders for global change. Oh, and by the way, he was also the co-founder and CEO of Uswitch, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, Alan, welcome to 5 Minutes With. Perhaps you could give us a bit of a summary of how you got to where you are now. If you could sum up your career in a minute or two.
Oh, Dave, that feels like a job interview. Well, I started my life actually with Yorkshire Bank as a management trainee. I was actually offered a job with Halifax, actually, but I refused to move to Yorkshire, coming from Lancashire. But funny enough, I ended up ironically working for Yorkshire Bank in the end anyway. So got a little bit fed up with the bank though. And interestingly, at the time, my father said, look, you need to have a professional career with professional qualifications if you're not going to go to university. I hadn't decided to go to university at that point. And interestingly, what I really wanted to do at that point was to go into computing. And the days of basic COBOL, floppy disk, punched cards, some of you may remember those. So after 3 years, I got bored in a bank and I left the good old banking world and went into the insurance world, into life and pensions. Main reason, being honest, was to make money, because my salary was basically doubled. I had a really successful career there, moved to Maidstone as manager, Brighton, Southampton, got fed up in sales, went back to business school, paid for by Eagle Star, and got promoted to Cheltenham, where I live today, as head of marketing for the direct division. I left there in '98. When Zurich took over the group, was offered the opportunity to go out to Dubai, but decided to put my backpack on and go traveling for a year. Came back vowing never to go back into financial services, and joined the world of energy with EDF Energy in London. And then, as we've all found out in the last 12 months, what COVID can do to your life, I had a life-changing event when 808 on the 8th of October 1999, I was involved in the Paddington rail crash. During that time, I had 3 months of convalescence, which left me in a situation where I had to work from home. EDF bought South West Electricity, later Northern. So I ended up staying, living in Cheltenham, commuting around the country, running the integration projects for that. Set Virgin Home up with Brenson. Then I had my own Frexit, I suppose you could call it, when I fell out with the board of EDF when they tried to appoint someone above me. I claimed that we had done for mis-selling. After leaving 3 months later, they were fined 2.7 million by the regulator. I was asked to go back for 4 weeks, charged them a fortune, and guess what I did? I went off traveling again. So around 2001, we found a group of us have found some interest in trying to find an alternative way to getting around the online selling, all the mis-selling that was going on the doorsteps. We had this idea of setting up an online comparison service, which became Uswitch. Formally joined that in 2023 with a group of 8 of us. So eventually, after 20 years of wanting to be in computing, I eventually got myself into the world of the internet and computing. In 2006, we sold that to the Americans, to a Scripps, a major US media business. I moved to the US, I lived in New York and LA, set Uswitch over there. Whilst my colleagues here back in the UK were spending their money that they'd earned from the windfall. So back in 2008, the Americans sent me back here to the UK as chief exec with a clear brief to rebuild the Uswitch business and to sell it again. So at 2:10 on the 24th of December 2009, we sold the business, and that was the end of my corporate life. And that's how I ended up being here, helping small businesses, startups, and growing small companies. And a couple of charities.
Thank you very much for that, Alan. That was it was a great summary of a very complicated and auspicious career. I wonder, if you could quickly tell me, but I want to ask you a little bit about your non-business life as well. But before we do that, what's your who are your inspirations? Who is there a person that has inspired you particularly, or a mantra or philosophy that you follow?
I have some really good bosses who trusted me, and I've taken that into my own business life. In that, the one thing in particular, my days at USwitch, is to surround yourself with the best possible people. Employ people who can do things that you can't even do. And I just think that was the way that we built USwitch to the business it was, in a very successful way. And I have some great clients I work with at the moment. I don't always understand what they do. They're brilliant at what they do, but they sometimes lack some of the underlying business skills where I'm able to help them.
So very quickly, Alan, what do you do in your spare time?
Well, I won't be sat here today. I've had a choice. I'll be up in the mountains skiing. My passion is skiing. So had to try and do golf instead recently, but that's also been cancelled. Fishing, can just about do that, but the lakes and rivers around here are all closed. My other real passion is travel, as you've probably gathered from a couple of things I've mentioned, following the Grand Prix. So that tends to keep me busy.
Alan, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I'm sorry it was such a short talk, but we'll be back in a little while with interviewing Philip Arnold. So in the meantime, thank you for listening to our first 5 minutes with, and I will hand you back to Chris.